the door wasn't closed.
Welcome, everyone. We're going to wait just a few more minutes for folks to continue joining, and then we'll start.
I can see. You can see my image.
Good evening, everyone, and thank you for joining this very special family weekend event, Dinner and Conversation with President and Mrs. Pines. My name is Brian Watkins, and I'm the Director of the Office of Parent and Family Affairs here at the university. I'm also the founder and chair of the Foster Interp Success Program, which provides support to students who've experienced foster care, are homeless, or at risk of becoming homeless. We might get into that a little bit later. But this is a dinner and discussion, so I hope all of you joining in have made dinner and drinks to enjoy while we get to know our university's first family via this Zoom conversation. Your cameras and microphones are not active, so don't worry about everyone watching you eat and drink. Just sit back, relax, and enjoy the conversation. It is my great pleasure to welcome Dr. Darryll Pines and Mrs. Sylvia Pines. Welcome to you both.
Thank you.
I just appreciate you both for agreeing to sit down with me for a Family Weekend program. We are celebrating the 40th anniversary of Family Weekend this year. And one of the highlights of the weekend is always the President's open house and reception at the University House. And we really wanted to celebrate your appointment as president and give families the opportunity to meet you both in person. So we will hold on to this and look forward to doing so post-pandemic. Before we begin, it is important for us to acknowledge the land on which the University of Maryland sits. As all of us at the university work to center decoloniality and liberation, it is critical that we recognize our positionality. I invite all of you to listen and reflect as I read the university's land acknowledgement statement, which was developed with and approved by Piscataway Tribe elders. At the University of Maryland, we believe it is important to create dialogue to honor those that have been historically and systematically disenfranchised. So we acknowledge the truth that is often buried. We are on the ancestral lands of the Piscataway people, who are among the first in the Western Hemisphere. We are on indigenous land that was stolen from the Piscataway people by European colonists. We pay respects to Piscataway elders and ancestors. Please take a moment to consider the many legacies of violence, displacement, migration, and settlement that bring us together here today. Thank you, everyone. President and Mrs. Pines, if you're ready, let's dig in.
Okay.
President Pines, you came to the University of Maryland in 1995 as assistant professor of engineering in the James A. Clark School of Engineering, and you most recently served for 11 years as dean of the Clark School. After a wonderful 25-year career at the university, What does it mean to you to continue this part of your journey as president?
Well, thank you, Brian, and thank you for hosting Sylvia and I. You know, for me, I've been here 25 years, and I'm really honored to serve as the 34th president of the University of Maryland. I feel an immense sense of service responsibility to the university for the wonderful career that I've had. And I feel just honored to represent this great institution on behalf of all of its citizens, its faculty, its staff, and its great students for the next several years as we embark on a journey of excellence.
Observers have characterized your leadership as forward momentum. And in a recent article in Maryland Today, William Forney called you the lemonade dean due to your ability to find the positive in a situation and make lemonade out of lemons. Where does that spirit come from?
Well, I'm probably one of those persons who is a glass half empty, right, or half full, more optimistic than most people. The way I look at things are sort of very simplistically. I like to listen to people, I like to learn, and then I like to act. And I like to inspire them to think that they can do great things by establishing a vision, a process, and a journey on how we're going to get there, and then an execution approach. And usually in my experience, you know, throughout my entire career, not just in academia, that when you establish such a high vision and you believe in people, and I really believe in people and their ability to do things greater than what they think they can do, it always leads to something good. And that's been my experience with students. It's been my experience with faculty. It's been my experience working in the government. And I think also it embodies what it means to be a terrapin. Students from Maryland, both past, present, and future, have something that I call terrapin grit. They're tough-minded, they are determined, they work hard, and they love to compete. And I take that and I just channel it in the right direction, and it always leads to excellence. And so that's why I think you might say I make lemons or lemonade out of lemons, and I do find the goodness in all people.
What many of our Terp families listening in may not know is that you have a twin. My nieces are twins, so I do have a sense for this, but what was it like growing up a twin? And do you have any funny twin stories?
Yes, so growing up as a twin, I want you to imagine, Brian, I want you to imagine, Brian, this. Every day from age 0 to 5th grade, even longer, your parents dressed you the same, and you went to school every day looking like the person that's in your household. And then every day you would get confused with the same person that's in your household. And this would happen literally every day. But the great thing about being a twin is that you have an immediate friend. For me, it's my brother, an identical twin. We're mirror image twins, so he's left-handed, I'm right-handed. We're about the same size. Maybe he's an inch taller than me. But I had a friend, I had a person to compete with every day. And I think at some point we drove each other to an insane asylum, and we needed to separate. And that separation for us happened at college. And now to tell you a few funny stories. And there's so many, I had to think of which ones do I want to tell you. Okay, I'll tell you a story where my brother asked me to, and this is when we were in our sort of mid-20s. He was working in Los Angeles for some engineering firm. I happened to be coming in to visit from graduate school, and he said, "Oh, you have to go in to meet my boss, but tell him you're really mad, and you're so mad that you're going to quit if he does not give you a pay raise." So I go in there, and of course, Brian, I sound exactly like my brother. My brother sounds exactly like, we have the same voice. And I go in there and I say, "I can't stand this place. You owe me money and you haven't paid me. This is unacceptable. I deserve a raise. I'm tired of working so hard. And of course, the poor supervisor was like taken aback. He's like, what's going on? Because my brother is a very reserved person. I'm more outgoing. So this was totally uncharacteristic. And literally the guy was like, what is going on? Right? And then so I do this and I stay on it. And then my brother walks in and then the guy almost has a heart attack. And he said, oh my God, there's two of you. And it was just a little funny joke kind of to play against his supervisor. And we always wanted to do those kind of things, which with people who would, not know that we were twins. And this was just a fun thing to do. And then let me just say one other story. So I'm flying through, I used to do a lot of flying back and forth to the West. My brother lives on the West Coast. We live on the East Coast, obviously. And I'm in Denver International Airport. And I'm walking with my bag, roller bag, and I hear somebody say my brother's name. My brother's name is Darryll. And somebody saying, hey, Derek. And I know the confusion. I already know what's going on with the person's mind. I keep walking because I know there's a misconception that I'm my brother. I keep walking. I go all the way to my gate. I sit down. I pull out my laptop, minding my business, and then I can feel. You know how you can feel a presence behind you. So the gentleman goes, "Excuse me, sir. Excuse me. Are you Derek Pines?" I said, "No, I am not Derek Pines." And he says, "God, you look just like him." I said, "That's because I'm his brother." And he said, "Really?" So he couldn't believe it. He said, "There's two of them." I said, "Yes, I'm his twin brother, but I'm not him." But so a lot of funny stories like that. When you have a twin, there's a lot of confusion that goes on. But one good thing about it is that we just share a very strong bond, and we're both engineers. He's an electrical engineer. Obviously, I'm an aerospace engineer. And often we'll do things. So, one last story, and then I'll move on, is he bought a truck, SUV. I didn't know he had bought an SUV. I bought an SUV. And so I call him up and say, so I'm calling you, Brian. Hey, Brian, hey, I got to tell you something. I got an SUV. He said, you got an SUV? I got an SUV. What? You got an SUV? What did you get? Well, I got a Ford Expedition. I got a Ford Expedition. So that's what happens when you're twins. We both got Ford Expeditions within 2 weeks of each other, just different colors. So those are my twin stories.
Yeah, I love it. That's fantastic. And I think there are a lot of twins that have very similar funny stories, trading places. And yeah it's I'm reflecting on my nieces a great deal when hearing you speak about about your experiences with your brother.
Funny.
Oh, well, Dr. Pines, as a newly minted teenager, you met one of the Tuskegee Airmen at a summer camp. And as you noted in another interview, this encounter had a profound impact. Can you take us back to that day and what that moment was like for you? And what was it about that encounter that affected you so deeply?
So so Brian, I was 13 years old. I grew up in a city called Oakland, and I lived in a portion of Oakland called East Oakland. And often my parents would try to put us into, summer camps, the Boys and Girls Club. And then one time they signed me up for a summer flight camp. And it was at the Oakland airport. I rode my bike there every time I went to the class. And I met this gentleman by the name of Lieutenant Charles Drummond. And Lieutenant Charles Drummond was a former Tuskegee Airman. And at that time, you can imagine at 13 years of age, I didn't know much about the Tuskegee Airmen, nor did I know much about World War I or World War II. And he sort of took me under his wing, and the whole Summer Flight Academy was about learning how to be a pilot. I had aspirations of being a pilot because I used to love to just watch airplanes take off and land at the Oakland airport. I would ride my bike to the airport, park my bike, and just watch planes land and take off. Then I got into the Summer Flight Academy, and I met this gentleman, like I said, Lieutenant Charles Drummond, and he inspired me to be in the field of aerospace engineering. And because I was really compelled by the whole Tuskegee Airmen story of their incredible story about getting into the service, being trained, being in that time of Jim Crow in our country, and everyone doubting their abilities to sort of fight in a war, in this case, World War II. And they just proved that they were an incredible group of men, both pilots, technicians, and leaders. And they helped the United States fight the Germans and beat them in several engagements. And he used to tell all these kids like me at that time this story. And I'm like, wow, that is amazing. And in some sense, he took me under his wing and was a mini mentor to me. And that's how I got inspired to be an aerospace engineer. I didn't actually even know what the field was at the time. Even when I was 13, I thought I really wanted to be a pilot, but it turned out I was more interested in the mechanics of flight. And while a pilot was really interesting too, but it was really how airplanes could take off and land was really interesting to me. And that turned out to be engineering and turned out to be aerospace engineering. So I'm deeply grateful to Mr. Drummond, who unfortunately passed away literally 20 years ago in the year 2000 when I started to think about this. But he was a great person to meet back in those days when I was a kid.
Well, and what a powerful lesson about the, I mean, you know, in some ways we never know whose lives we're touching in that moment.
Absolutely.
And what a profound effect just one interaction can have, or one
Absolutely.
moment can have. Thank you for sharing that story.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for asking.
So this is for both of you. I love a good love story. Tell us about your first date.
Okay, I think I'll take that one. Okay, so we were in two different states. So I was in Pennsylvania, Darryll was in Massachusetts, and we had a couple people orchestrating behind the scenes, trying to get us together. So there was an event going on, a black tie affair going on up there in Massachusetts. So my best friend who was living up there, she's like, "Oh, come on up. I want you to meet somebody." Da, da, da. So, you know, so I flew up there and we went to the black tie affair. Of course, my husband, Darryll, was there, and we talked and chatted, and we had a great time at the black tie affair. And I think after that evening, I think the next day I flew back home. It's like every night for like the next week and a half, we talked until like 2, 3 o'clock in the morning. Get home from work, call, and just, hours on the phone. So it was great. It was a great.
Well, on my side of the equation, Brian, I was a graduate student at MIT, and I was a lonely graduate student at MIT. So it was fortunate. I was one of the organizers of this black tie affair. And so I was just happy that there was an opportunity to meet somebody. And that fortunate, we really struck it off really well. And it led to these immediately long phone calls, from Boston to Philadelphia, and then ultimately long drives from Boston to Philadelphia, and train rides, and of course the rest is history. But it was a great decision on both our parts. And here we are today. I don't think we ever would have thought from that time period that we would be sitting here in University House and sharing this conversation with you.
That's a terrific story. And certainly before, like in some ways, I feel like you had to work a little harder for those conversations because we didn't have all of these, right?
That's right. Yeah, we forget about that. I don't forget about it. I mean, because those were some extensive calls. Let me just put it like that.
That's exactly right. When you had to re-up your long distance phone card.
Exactly.
Right. I want to give you time to brag about your adult children. Give us an update on your Terps, Kalela and Donovan.
Oh, okay. Okay, well, Kalela is a 2018 grad alumni. And she's now at Emory School of Medicine, and she's getting her doctorate in physical therapy. She'll be graduating May of 2021, so a couple of years went by quickly. So she went straight from undergrad to graduate school. And Donovan, he at University of Maryland as well. He left his junior year right after they won the NCAA championship here for soccer, and he's pursuing his dream of being a professional soccer player. So he's now playing for DC United, and pursuing his dream. So we're very proud of both of them.
And I would add, Brian, that for both of them, they're both Terps. went here for undergrad. They were both started off as biology majors. A daughter went on to get the physical therapy PhD. Son still has about 31 credit hours to finish here at College Park, and is doing that sort of during the winter term. One or two courses every term he can get it in. But I think from my perspective, we're most proud of our children. So for my daughter, she really, cares about people, and that's why she went into this particular field. She loves to help people get better. I think that's really important to her. And then our son's side, I think I'm most proud by the fact that not that he was a professional soccer player, not that he, loves the subject of biology, but I'm actually proud of him because he's very diversified. I mean, he speaks pretty well in Mandarin, and he learned that as a high school student and a middle school student. And I think he has a global perspective, and is much more diversified than saying he's just a soccer player. And I think both of our children that he played a music instrument, they played sports, they did academics very well. So we're just proud of them as well-rounded human beings, and that they want to give back to society in a positive way. I think that's what I'm most proud of.
Absolutely. And how wonderful that Donovan is down the road,
Right,
Yeah,
exactly.
right, at DC United.
So blessed, yes.
Yeah.
And that beautiful new stadium.
Oh,
Yeah, it's a beautiful stadium.
Yes.
Oh, we'll get to go back there one day.
I know. I think the last time we saw DC United, they were playing out at the Navy. Was the last time we saw them play.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah. So, in thinking back a little bit to when you were parenting your adult children when they were in undergrads here at Maryland, what is the most important lesson you learned about parenting a college student? And how did that change or influence your parenting from that point forward?
I would say initially just trying to get our kids to navigate things on their own. So, the first 18 years, we try and give them as much information as we can. And, once they're out of the house, okay, you hope they listen to you while you're home. But just trying to get them to navigate as much as they can on their own. And they should know, they knew that we were always there for them. We're always behind them 100%. Anything that you need, please let us know, so they always knew that we were always here for them. So, but one thing I did realize, I guess, from one child, your children are different and they navigate things differently. So what I did was for the academic piece, I guess right before every single semester, so this is like a piece of information I try and give parents, freshman parents coming in, or my siblings or friends, tell them that just take 5 minutes before every semester, just find out which classes your child's taking and if they need any assistance in any of them, and get a tutor early. It'll save you so much of a headache later on down the line. So if they're taking statistics, that's not their forte, contact the advisor, get something lined up by the first day. This way they know they can meet the tutor and then move forward through that semester with that tutor. It's so helpful for each one of my children. They were just, it might have only happened 2 or 3 times their whole collegiate career, but it was just so helpful. And I've helped so many other parents, get rid of so many headaches. You don't want to wait until the middle of the semester trying to drop something. So just a little piece of tidbit of information.
And then I would say, Brian, having been an academic now for 25 plus years, plus a parent of Terps, same kind of advice, but I would say, part of coming to college, for the parents who are listening, is for each student to slowly but surely understand who they are, to determine their identity. That's number one. Number two, to allow them to grow and become confident as human beings in society. College is a wonderful place to grow in many different ways, socially, academically, in many other respects. But always be there when they need you. Funny story for us is my daughter, who's a graduate student in her 3rd year and the doctor of physical therapy, still will send me a paper to read. Dad, read this paper. Like I don't have anything else to do. Like I'm like running the University of Maryland. Hello, I'm a little tired. I'm not be able to read this 30-page paper that you just sent me. And she'll send it to me, Brian. Oh, Dad, I'll send it to you at like midnight, and it's due like tomorrow morning. Oh, okay, that's wonderful. And so so that's when you get humbled that you're just a parent, right? She could care less about whatever thing I have to do, but and that feels good because she still trusts me to review things that she's written, and I love to do it. So I'm not saying that I'm upset. It upsets me, but it's you're seen as a parent, which is great, and you can always give back to your children in whatever way that may be.
Well, and how great that she still values that input from you. I mean, I think that's something to treasure for sure. And I love the tutoring advice. I do think that's important. And one of the, I'll do a plug for the tutoring that we offer at the University of Maryland for the parents that are listening, tutoring.umd.edu. That website has a wealth of resources on nearly any tough subject at the university that helps get students connected with tutoring resources on campus. Thank you for raising that.
Emphasize that is so important. I mean, and some of the STEM disciplines, like in the college that I used to be in charge of in engineering, there were Monday through Thursday, it was free tutoring, and it was called the Keystone program. And so anyone could just show up. They didn't even sign up, just show up and get support. And then not only that, they could always talk to a Keystone faculty member and get an individual tutor. So we provide these services. So Brian is absolutely right. Just go to tutoring.umd.edu and services can be rendered to your child.
Dr. Pines, as you reflect on your time in the classroom, tell us about a student who touched your heart, and tell me about a student who changed how you teach.
Okay, I'll talk about the first one first. Let me think about this. I met a young lady named Abisola Casimo. She came from Maplewood, New Jersey, and she was a freshman in 2013. And she comes into the dean's office and she's looking for a job. But I didn't know at the time, because I didn't really meet her at that time, that she had an ulterior motive. So she came in and got a front desk job for us as a freshman. She had this, then of course, as a freshman, I started to meet her. She said, I'm Abisola Casimo. I'm a mechanical engineering major, and I'm in the innovation entrepreneurship program. I'm doing this, I'm doing that. And she was one of those incredible human beings who had a plan. And her whole plan for being in the dean's office was to get a letter of reference from me and to get me to mentor her. I didn't know that at the time, right? I just thought, oh, there's a young lady, and we have all kinds of students that work in the dean's office. So here's another one. So I just started to chat with her, but she had a complete agenda. And it was really amazing. I want you to think about this. A freshman mechanical engineering major who comes to Maryland, has agenda to, first of all, befriend the dean of the college, make sure the dean becomes a mentor to her. Number 3, make sure the dean will write every letter for every fellowship, scholarship she ever wanted. And then finally, she told me as a freshman, Dr. Pines, I am going to get a PhD from either Caltech or Stanford. And of course, at the time, Brian, I laughed it off, like, sure. And I'm going to get a PhD from Oxford University. And that young lady is about to complete her PhD in environmental science at Stanford University. And I have probably written for her, I don't know, over 10 letters of reference in which she won all kinds of scholarships, fellowships, and national honors. And she is just this incredible leader. She was the first student at the University of Maryland who actually launched a TEDx format for University of Maryland, TEDx at UMD. She did it all. She organized it, got me to give her some, the Clark School of Engineering to give her money, all the other colleges to give her money, the provost to give her money, and she knocked it out of the park. So I will always remember Abisola as this incredible, capable student who had an incredible mission. So that's the answer to your first question. And then to answer your second question about someone that affected me in the classroom that made me change what I did. Well, it sort of will sound like a negative story, but I should share the story because it's a true story. In my very first year as a faculty member at University of Maryland in 1995, I was teaching a class in aerospace engineering. It was on orbital mechanics. I had about 30 students in the class, and there were only 3 women students in the class. And I thought I was doing a great job, first class I was teaching. And, these 3 women in my class, they ended up getting all A's. But what I didn't know is that somehow in the class, I offended them. And I didn't know I had offended them. But unbeknownst to me, they met with the chair of the department and they informed the chair and they said, and the chair's name at the time was Dr. Bill Forney. And they said, Dr. Forney, we have a concern over Dr. Pines. He seems to be deferential when questions are asked from men to him than when they're asked from women. And of course, Dr. Forney was perplexed. He was like, I don't think that's Dr. Pines, but what do you mean? And so they gave me one example, and it may seem harmless, but it really recalibrated me in terms of inclusivity. So apparently I had a habit of saying, like if a male asked the question, oh, Brian, that's a great question. But apparently when these 3 females asked the question, I never said that was a great question. And I'm like, and I started to think and process, and I'm like, did I say that? Did I not ever say that to them? And I guess I never said that to them, right? And so that stood out to me. And every time going forward, I thought about, let me be careful with how I respond to any question in class from any group and make sure I would say it very consistently back to them. And that was very helpful for me because I thought about, wow, I don't want folks to feel marginalized in an engineering class ever again. And that helped me think about how to think about making my classes more inclusive, both culturally and engaging and respectfully. And that was really helpful for me. So that's what I really remember. And to this day, that's what makes me focus on creating a more inclusive environment at our university.
Well, and what a wonderful lesson about, I think for us as educators, our intent, right? And then how that's perceived.
Exactly.
But then also being open to whatever that feedback is from, right, the students that we're interacting with of those messages and growing from that. Yeah, absolutely.
And, I never ever, I never befriended the 3 women. I just took that as that's great advice. I need to correct myself. You're right. Their perception is their reality. I need to do a better job. That's on me. That should have never happened, right? So absolutely. So it was good to get, that's why feedback is really, really important.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Mrs. Pines, what makes you feel inspired or like your best self?
Inspired. My children, always inspired by my children, their hard work, their dedication, when they put their mind to things and, and just knock it out and they do it. Set the bar high and they reach it. So I'm always inspired by the way that, their diligence. And over the past, I would say 2 or 3 months, I've definitely been inspired by the strength of my husband over the past 3 months, getting this university started, and the strength of the students, and making sure that they follow protocol and doing everything that, because they want to make this work too. So those things have inspired me most definitely over the past several months, several weeks, in particular.
Well, and especially I think watching our children succeed in various ways. It's a reflection on you and what the impact that you've made on them too, but you can't help but be proud. So thank you for sharing that. As a public land grant institution, what can we do to expand opportunities for Maryland's residents, especially for Black, Indigenous, and people of color young adults from Baltimore and Prince George's County?
So, I think, when I interviewed, I really said to Board of Regents and to the search committee, that to me, because the way I went to school is I went to, out of University of California, Berkeley, was a land grant public institution. And I grew up in an impoverished environment. And if I didn't have access to that institution, and if they didn't provide me with a scholarship, I would have never be sitting here today as the president of the University of Maryland. So to me, it's personal. And I want to ensure that every kid from any zip code in the state of Maryland has access, and it makes the University of Maryland affordable for them to attend. I believe that's the mission of the flagship university. The mission is to ensure that any person in this state, no matter what their socioeconomic situation, their race, ethnicity, sexual identity, religious background, that they can come to the flagship campus and reach their full potential such that we provide access, affordability, and an opportunity to be successful. And I think we're going to start doing some things that are incredible. And I'll just give you a couple of hints. This year, 2020, because of the situation we've been in, which is dealing with the two pandemics, the virus and the social unrest in our country, it has allowed us, the University of Maryland, to think more holistically about our admissions process. And so now, for the first time, we'll be test optional for this fall, for the November applications. Number two, we will allow the Common App. We never used the Common Application before, which will open up the floodgates of all those students who could not apply through the Common App to the University of Maryland. Well, we've got that all figured out now. And we're probably going to advance more other pathways from two-year institutions to the university. And that should enhance opportunities for all, especially those from Prince George's County and those from the city of Baltimore. When I was a dean of engineering in the Clark School, I established partnerships with high schools in Prince George's County and the city of Baltimore. One of the high schools that I established a partnership with in Baltimore was Baltimore Polytechnic. When I started as dean, there wasn't a single student coming from Baltimore Polytechnic to the University of Maryland. By the time I became president, this fall, they have about 21 students enrolling from Baltimore Polytechnic, which is a very diverse technical school. And it just makes me feel proud because it was simply a partnership to basically discuss what was necessary to ensure that students from this high school were college ready, and that then they could apply, get into Maryland, and succeed in the engineering school. And I think that's true across the entire university. So that is my commitment to focus on access and affordability and making sure that anyone that comes from any zip code can come to the flagship and be successful.
Well, I appreciate hearing that, because I think that's one of our goals also with Fostering Terp Success, which is a relatively new program at the university, but really trying to wrap up students in all kinds of support, especially students who come from a background of foster care, and who are homeless or at risk of becoming homeless. And I think that pathway from a two-year institution to us is critically important, because that's where we would typically find students who've been impacted by those issues, and we can seamlessly bring them here through the continuum of care, especially in Prince George's County, and make sure that we can provide the resources to ensure their success here at Maryland. So I'm really excited about our future.
Me too. You know, there was a couple named Steve Dubin and Mim Dubin, and they founded a scholarship that was specifically for foster children who got admitted to the University of Maryland. So it's an opportunity for them to use those monies to pay for schooling, which is great.
Yeah, that's amazing. That's really terrific. There's been a lot of focus on science, technology, engineering, and math, so STEM, at all levels over the past several years, from primary schools through college. And some argue that it's been at the detriment of the arts and even the arts and humanities. How do you respond to this? And how does Maryland respond to this?
Well, I mean, I want everyone to know that I'm the president of the entire university, not just of the engineering school. And when I started on July 1st, I laid out two major priorities. The first priority was excellence in everything that we do, excellence in the arts, excellence in academics, excellence in athletics, excellence in innovation and entrepreneurship. And then the second priority was to create a more multicultural, inclusive environment for all. So those were my highest priorities and they remain to be my highest priorities. And even as I sit here today, also on July 1st, I said that I would lay out 12 initiatives. One of those initiatives was to recognize one of our most distinguished professors, a distinguished university professor, Mr. David Driscoll. And this is the year of celebration of Mr. Driscoll. As you may know, Brian, he unfortunately lost his life as a result of COVID back in March. And it's really sad for me personally, because I've known David Driscoll for many years as a faculty member. And when I was announced as president in February, I met with him and I said, hey, David, we're gonna showcase all of your artwork in University House. And I want you to come over, we're gonna do events and all that. And so he was super happy, I was happy. And then of course he passes away in March. But I held my promise to him and his family and to the Driscoll Center. So right now, if you were in University House, you would see over 20 pieces of art that are associated with David Driscoll, because he was one of our most distinguished university professors and happened to be in the area of the visual arts, and his specialty was African-American artists. And so it's being showed for the whole academic year here. In addition, there's a year of celebration for David Driscoll. But moreover, you will be hearing from me a few more initiatives coming out both in the visual arts, also in the performing arts and the fine arts in the near future. You might actually get more commitment from me in this space than you think. And so, because I'm super excited, about what we've been doing in that space. And so stay tuned. I think you'll be very surprised.
I think that's great. I also want you to know that was not a critique of you as an engineer not being able to focus on.
Some people have said that. I didn't take it personally. I just wanted to set the record
Yeah,
straight.
no, I think I'm so excited, and I love that piece by David behind you hanging on the wall. His art is really, really amazing. If you could remove all barriers and constraints, what is the one thing you would change about the University of Maryland?
I mean, I think the easy statement would be, it would be great to erase the past history. So we didn't have that baggage that we live with and try to overcome. The statement that you made at the beginning of this session, as the effect of how this land in which we sit on, we're part of the indigenous people of this country, of this land. This university indeed was built by slaves. That's part of our history. We were land grant institute in 1856, but since 1856, but the first African-American that entered the university was in 1951. So we have to overcome some issues about our history, but we have great strength and great pride in what we've been able to accomplish. I mean, we are a multicultural, diverse, excellent institution where all people, I believe, can reach their full potential. So my goal is simply to make it better and to achieve all the goals that we want in terms of excellence about what we want to do and how we want to project our image on how we will help societies or solve society's greatest challenges and have a positive impact on our people, including in the area of social justice. Yesterday, in partnership with Bowie State University, we announced the Social Justice Alliance, which is to honor the legacy of Lieutenant Richard Collins III, who unfortunately lost his life on our campus, but was a Bowie State student. But that's a positive way to turn something that was negative into a positive. So now we're going to focus on things that will make our community better, but also make society better. So we'll do the scholarly research, we'll do the academic work in the curriculum, but we'll also translate whatever work we do scholarly-wise into actual practice so that society becomes better because of the work that we do in partnership on social justice with Bowie State University. So I'm proud of our institution. I'm also proud of its history because it's acknowledging its history, and we're trying to move forward in a positive way to make a positive difference in the lives of all people.
You mentioned Grand Challenges. Do you want to tell us a little bit about the Grand Challenges course that you've created and some of the great speakers that you have?
Yeah, so thank you for asking about that, Brian. So basically, I love teaching, right? And I never really wanted to get away and just be Joe administrator or Susie administrator. That was true as a department chair, it's true as a dean, and now it's true as president. So I kept telling everybody, I said, I'm going to do this class. They were like, oh, don't do it. No, I'm going to do this class, And I said, it's important. I said, why is it so important? So basically, I created this class, which is called The Grand Challenges of Our Time. And I don't think it could have been a better title, because indeed, we are living in an incredible time period, all of us. We will never forget 2020. We will always remember the coronavirus. And we will also remember the other pandemic of social injustice, which in the United States has been around for 400 plus years. So I call it a grand challenge, but there are other grand challenges. So the purpose of my class, it's simply a 1-credit class, and all the students, there's 80 plus students in the class, and they're all freshmen. And what am I trying to do? I am showcasing to them human beings from around the United States or around the world who took upon a grand challenge themselves and made a difference. And what I'm trying to say to our students, that you too, you are Terps, you have a responsibility, because you are Terps, to help solve some of society's greatest grand challenges. I'm introducing them to those kinds of people to simply inspire the passion to take on a challenge, to take on a problem, and to believe that you, as one individual, can take on something that might be bigger than yourselves and make a difference that's positive, that may actually affect millions of people in a positive way. So my first speaker was this past week, Dr. Mona Hana Atisha. She happens to be a clinician, a pediatrician, and she happened to come across a problem in Flint, Michigan, where she discovered that the children were being infected with lead in the water. She decided to raise that as a public health issue. And she decided that that was going to be her cause, that she was going to solve the Flint, Michigan water crisis. And she has done that. And it started with, she simply cared about the health of children. And so just showcasing her to our students inspires them to think that that could be me, that I can solve a problem like that. I can use my skills, my passion for something, and my ability to network and create policy change to help make a difference in the lives, in this case, of some children, and in fact, the whole community. And that's the purpose of the class. So that's one of them was environmental injustice. We'll talk about criminal injustice. We'll talk about some other injustices with other speakers to try to, and again, inspire our students to think big and believe that they can do something bigger than themselves.
Yeah, I've been jealous about the focus on first year students, because these classes, they just sound amazing. As we wrap up our time together, what didn't I ask that you would like Terp families to know, or a message you'd like to leave with everyone?
I think. Okay, well, as far as the next 4 years navigating, for your kids, it won't be easy, but just try and put your patient hat on. There's going to be some challenges. I know he and I have had a couple of gray hairs through the 4 years our kids go through. So, but just, trying to be patient through that, and always being available for your kids. So make sure that you're available, whether they call you at 8 o'clock in the morning, 8 p.m. at night, 2 o'clock in the morning, whatever it is, so they can talk to you, so they can share, and so they can confide in you. So I think that coming from my kids was important to them. So I just wanted to share that with everybody out there, knowing that they could call us anytime about anything.
And I guess I would add, and at least to the parents who might be listening, first of all, you should know that from the president of the university, we care about your children, your sons and daughters. We care about their well-being. If they are here on our campus as freshmen, they are excited to be here. Even though we are fairly de-densified and they may not have a roommate if you're in the residence hall, they are excited to be here. I've walked around the campus several times, the residence halls and communities, and spoken to our students from all around the country. They are happy to be here. They are excited to be on our campus. They love our campus, and they're getting educated. And so just know that they're in good hands with all of our team, our staffs in the residence life, our folks in family life, and also, you know, everybody here wants to make sure they have a really good experience to the best of our ability. That's safe and keeps their health and well-being as the highest priority. That's everything we've done is to keep the health and safety and well-being of every student our highest priority. And but we're happy to have them here, and I love seeing their just incredible jovial selves out there enjoying our environment and, you know, and getting an education. It's really wonderful for me to see.
It has been such a joy for me to speak with both of you. Thank you for doing this and for being part of our virtual family weekend. As we close tonight's event with President and Mrs. Pines, I just want to invite all of you out there to raise a glass. And Dr. and Mrs. Pines, may your time at the university continue to be filled with progress and promise. May you continue to lead with the heart and passion that has been characteristic of your leadership. And may each and every one of us work to support you, the entire University of Maryland community, and especially our students in all the ways we can. Cheers.
You, Brian. Cheers. And
Thank
go
you.
Terps.
Thank you.
Go Terps. Thanks, everybody. Have a great night.
Have a good night. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.